Just in, Australia makes massive move against Muslims. Trump was right. The left here in the United States tries to shout anyone down who wants to vet who we bring into this country. We are sick of it, and apparently so is Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. In a shocking, but pleasing, twist, Turnbull recently buckled down on the way you get your citizenship in Australia. The key point is you need to show that your values reflect the values that the Australian people hold dear. According to SBS News, there will be overall tighter requirements for new applicants, especially for Muslims suspected of following Sharia law. One of the first steps you need to take to make it into the country is to pass a tougher citizenship test. The test originally had 20 questions, now there are going to be more questions added to the test. They are going to include reading, writing, listening, and moral components. Turnbull said that he is doing this in an attempt to not just strengthen the multicultural aspect of Australia, but to also strengthen the values that they hold as a country. He went on to say that he would never ask potential citizens to abandon their heritage or their culture or their background, but they need to understand how people treat one another in Australia. They will not settle for people who are okay with domestic violence or hold radical beliefs. It is also going to be required that the person interested has a 4-year permanent residence in Australia. They cannot just show up, claim they want to live there, and that is the end of it. In other words, they have standards. If a potential applicant takes the test and fails it twice, they are going to have to wait another 2 years before they try again. When they fail a citizenship test, obviously there is something that qualifies them as not being able to function within a normal, healthy society. The Democrats of our country could stand to learn a thing or two from Turnbull's move. In our country, the left embrace dangerous ideology. We have people in our streets shouting that we need to follow Sharia law. When we try to stand up to the people in our country who want to bring dangerous refugees here, we are called racists, bigots, Islamophobes, and so on and so forth. But Australia has set a new standard that we should look at very carefully. There is a lot that we can learn from their new setup. We are just waiting for the left to start yelling that the entire country of Australia is racist. It would not surprise us if the left tried to take this approach. They have already shown that they will actively attack anyone who thinks differently than they do. A message is being sent through the world that we are not going to settle for this irrational behavior, and that we are no longer willing to let refugees come here unchecked. Our guess is, the crime rate in Australia is going to drop immensely due to this move. They are going to end up happier, safer, and better off than they were before thanks to this new stricter system. We need to adopt something similar as soon as possible. Do you think President Trump is going to follow Turnbull's lead? Please share this story on Facebook and let us know because we want to hear your voice. Breaking, civil war about to erupt after what just happened in Sanctuary City. Every policy that President Donald Trump tries to implement for Americans' safety, is not only met with a great deal of resistance from the left but also from defiant judges who block his progress. We saw this several times with Trump's travel ban from terrorist-hit countries, and now we're seeing it with regards to so-called sanctuary cities. Judges are disguising their clear liberal bias as judicial rulings, and now tensions over this illegal immigrant issue have put America at the breaking point, edging on a civil war. On Tuesday, federal judge William Ork III blocked President Trump's executive order he just signed, which would prevent federal funding from going to sanctuary cities to help illegals. As soon as he heard the goods weren't going to go to several cities in his liberal state, he took immediate action that was within his power, much to the delight of liberals who were counting on him to disrespect our leader's orders. Ork, of the Northern District of California, issued an injunction against the Trump administration after the city of San Francisco and county of Santa Clara sued over the president's plan to withhold federal funds from municipalities that harbor illegal immigrants, Fox News Insider reported. The block was made on the claim that Trump's order was too broad and would affect other parts of government reliant on the funds, outside of assistance for illegals. Trump isn't one to accept defeat or sit back and allow liberals to walk all over him. addressing the defiant move as more than just sticking to party lines but putting people in danger. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer released the following statement, adding fuel to the issue. San Francisco, and cities like it, are putting the well-being of criminal aliens before the safety of our citizens, and those city officials who authorize these policies have the blood of dead Americans on their hands. Adding to that sentiment, Spicer also called this ruling what it truly is, a gift to drug cartels and street gangs. However, the reverse of this executive order and the numerous blocks of others that came before it is far worse than just usurping our president's decisions and appeasing your party. Fox News' Perfectly Blunt show host, Tucker Carlson, pointed this out along with making the declaration that this repeat practice of getting lone district court judges to reverse Trump's every order sets a new terrifying standard. The least accountable branch of our government becomes the most powerful, the judicial branch, and various cities and states can nullify virtually any federal law they don't like, effectively becoming their own countries, Tucker explained before issuing a warning of what will come from this increasingly popular practice. There's a word for that, it's called civil war. Tucker laid it out perfectly. Liberals don't respect the system, checks, and balances that our forefathers set up on purpose, which was to create a government accountable to the people. The left does what they do best and found a loophole to get what they want and go around our president with these little victories, after losing the presidential victory. If conservatives had repeatedly pulled these kinds of rulings when Barack Obama was in office, we would have already experienced a civil war before now. Perhaps a civil war is what liberals want so they can blame the mutiny on Trump and pave the way to his impeachment. It's a manipulative game they are playing, from abusing power to blaming others for the issues they create. Barack Obama set a record number of executive orders in his 2 terms in office, and while Trump is well on his way, thankfully, of undoing those, the resistance from the opposing party is completely different. It's only a matter of time before we find ourselves in a civil war, considering that liberals can't let God and allow Trump to simply do his job, no matter if it even hurts people in their own party. Ivanka makes shocking statement about her stepmom on her birthday yesterday. How do you feel about this? Family is complicated. It's the first, and possibly the most complicated diplomatic situation any of us will ever have to navigate. Some days you want to kiss them and some days you want to kill them. Anybody who tells you any differently is either lying or doesn't spend much time with their family. It's all about human nature and the fact that we're all flawed, and those flaws come out at some of the worst times. But if you're a good family member, you'll forgive and have their back anyway. The first family no doubt has its share of tricky moments with step-parents and siblings and all the in-laws. It's a universally troubling situation to try and make sure that there are no misunderstandings. That has to be magnified by about 1000x with the cameras and news crews poised to pounce if you show even the smallest whiff of disregard. Thankfully, everybody in the family seems to be dedicated to making the relationships work, despite what the media would have you believe. None have had more criticism or seem to be doing better than Ivanka and her stepmom Melania Trump, and this was displayed in a big way on the Flotus's birthday. Via Daily Mail. Ivanka Trump wished the First Lady and her stepmother Melania Trump a happy birthday on Wednesday in a Twitter message filled with adoration. President Donald Trump's eldest daughter made sure to publicly proclaim how lovely she considered her stepmom as she turned 57. The Daily Mail got Melania's age wrong, she actually just turned 47. Her fawning post followed reports on Sunday from 2 unnamed sources that the First Lady and Ivanka, 35, have a frosty relationship. Happy birthday to our First Lady, and my incredible stepmom, Melania Trump, Ivanka wrote in a tweet posted Wednesday. A wonderful example of kindness and grace for us all. At Flotus. A White House spokesperson denied allegations that the 2 women do not get along and said they have always had a close bond. If the relationship is frigid, it could stem from Ivanka standing in for First Lady duties. In a Vanity Fair article centered on the private life of Melania, the magazine claimed that 2 unidentified sources in both fashion and media noticed cold interactions between her and Ivanka. Melania was greeted with disapproving headlines when it was announced she would be staying in New York City with her son Barron for the remainder of the 11-year-old's academic school year, despite President Donald Trump moving to Washington, D.C. Anka, on the other hand, quickly rounded up her 3 children and husband Jared Kushner to move into a $5.5 million home in the exclusive neighborhood of Kalorama in D.C. The first daughter, who returned from Germany on Wednesday where she had traveled on behalf of the president to mourn Holocaust victims, has always been at her father's side. Upon her return and just before she sent out the happy birthday message to Melania, the star Trump child tweeted a video with her son, Theodore, as the two of them wished on a dandelion. Straight from the plane to a date with the kids in the Dumbarton Oaks Gardens, she wrote in the tweet on Wednesday. "It was an amazing trip, but it's great to be home. I'm obviously not privileged enough to know the first family, but can I just say that if anyone is good and kind enough to win over their stepdaughter, they must be doing something right. Of course, you're welcome to listen to the media when they tell you that it's all a big publicity stunt and the two actually hate one another. That they act so badly when the cameras aren't trained on them, but maybe you should consider your source there. The media has proved that they will do anything to get you to think badly of anyone with the last name Trump, even if it's taking cheap shots at his family. And to be honest, if families are tricky, stepfamilies are the Sunday Times crossword. Have the two ever disagreed on anything? Almost assuredly they have at some point. They're both smart, strong women. But the question is, how do they deal with these problems? Obviously the patching up has been strong in these two. People can hurt us, especially those that we love and that love those we'll love, but if you can't disagree with someone you love and then go back and make it right and decide the relationship is bigger, then that sounds like a personal problem and something you should work on. But don't worry about the first family because obviously, they have it down pat. Obama's homosexual scandal blows wide open after what he was just caught doing came out. Many Americans on both sides of the political spectrum senses something amiss with former President Barack Obama, whether they like to admit it or not. Sure, he seemed charismatic to some and was certainly younger than most presidents. However, there was something else that didn't sit right with a good majority of conservatives, outside his silver tongue that seemingly told a great many, including his sexuality, which frequently came into question throughout his administration. Obama's mannerisms were one thing, but the characteristics of his wife added to the assault.